going to do is we do very quick introductions because this is Leaders Connect, CEO Connect, and a big part of this is the connection piece. I've estimated that over the 15 years that I've done this that 30 or 40 trillion dollars worth of business has been done just in this room. Steve Gill himself he's asked for 30 million, but how much have you got, Steve, so far? Trillion, yeah. And there's certain people here. One of my favorite pieces of literature is Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. Does anybody know that play? They're reviving it on Broadway. But Lorraine Hansberry has a term that I like. It's a very Shakespearean that says that there are two types of people in the world. There's takers or tookens. So when you go around, you can identify yourself, the takers or the tookens. Not really, but what I'm going to ask you to do is take, we need a name for this. Anybody, what name strikes you?
Rob.
I don't think so. It's got a name on it? What's the name? Ruby. All right, we'll call her Ruby. Ruby. This is given to me, and I'll Ruby. Ruby. This is Ruby. So when you get Ruby, say who you are, and I think one of the key things that I always am emphasizing in my consulting and coaching is identify your customers and understand what your customers' needs are. That if you're going to get any business, you have to understand who your customer is and what their needs are, and forget about what you offer, but understand what that piece is. So as we're going around, I'm going to ask you to just say who your name is, what your name is, what your job is, and then who is your customer. And we got to do this pretty quick because we want to get Paul on by 7:30. So I'm Rob Pasick. I do executive coaching and consulting. My customer is all of you who need help in your strategy, in being the best person you can be, and getting your business to be the best it can be. Jim, meet Ruby. Yeah, and you get the mic too. Get your hands full.
I'm not sure how this necessarily relates to that.
That doesn't. It doesn't.
Just trying to figure it out.
Just trying to. The idea is that when you have that, you better pay attention. So.
Oh, okay. That's hard. I'm Jim Winslow. I'm with United Bank and Trust here in Ann Arbor. I'm a financial advisor, and my clients are all of you also. Some of you may be in this room. And I work with people to help them reach their financial goals and dreams.
And Jim is part of United Bank, who is a sponsor of this event, so thank you for that. So he's a giver of some money.
Good morning, I'm Dave Gregorka. I'm a venture partner with Beard Capital, which is a venture capital fund out of Chicago. I also spend about a day a week with U of M's Office of Tech Transfer, and my customers are small and growing businesses in Michigan.
You actually don't have to hold the dog. I realize holding the dog. Well, if you want, okay. If you want to hold the dog.
Good morning. My name is Nadine Henry. I'm with 4C Global Consulting, and I am an executive coach starting. What I offer to customer is a combination of business knowledge, culture knowledge, and leadership with some consulting. I come from all these different environments, trying to put everything together, plus the concept of the body, the mind, and the heart. So my idea is just to mix everything and really reach a lot of people in very different ways. And by the way, I am starting as an executive coach, so if you're interested in being coached, at this point I'm still in training, so please, you can please contact me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patrick Racine with Eldon Water. What we do is our customers are looking for ways to preserve their capital assets, steam system, cooling system, industrial plants, hospital, university campuses, and they're looking at ways to optimize how much water and energy they use, which is why this subject appealed to us. And we also share office space with Rob, which is how we got here. So this is me.
I'm a problem solver. Sit. That makes it easier. Hi, I'm Kathleen Stevens. I've known Rob forever and one of his biggest fans. I am with the National Network of Depression Centers. I do marketing and development. Our customers are, well, the physicians, psychiatrists that do the research, and actually probably either you or one out of six of you or someone you know in your family that has depression, trying to have better treatment outcomes. And also we're always looking for partners in both technology and of course fundraising. Come see me.
I'm Roger Rail. I'm a venture catalyst. Oh, got the dog, yeah. Nice dog. And so I do a lot of live streaming, recording of video, and also do a lot of information mashups. So I actually just started a new LLC late last year, Roger Rail Virtual Ventures, R2 Vive. So I can help you with any of your data presentation needs.
Roger is another one of our sponsors.
All right, thank you. My name is Pat Reinbelt, and I'm the Executive Director at the National Network of Depression Centers, working with Kathleen. I think Kathleen did an excellent job describing our customers, and I'd invite all of you to look at what we do, visit our website, Facebook. We're starting to grow and get the word out. Thank you.
Can I interrupt back for a second? I forgot to mention, I put a card on each of the tables. I also do the video for ACE, Annual Collaboration for Entrepreneurship. It's January 30th, Thursday, all day. Definitely should go there. If you have a business that relates to entrepreneurship, you might want to get an exhibit table. You have to do that by Monday. How many are going to ACE? Yeah, so you can talk to your other people and tell how much networking you get done.
I'm Connie Doyle. I work in emergency medicine and disaster planning, and my customers are anybody at any time, anywhere.
My name's Ann Wallach. I founded Keystone Media 20 years ago, celebrating our 20th year this year. Our customers are anyone who wants to increase their visibility and their return on the internet. We help you improve that presence.
I'm Bob Andrews from Michigan Commercial Realty, and I've been in business for about 35 years in commercial real estate. I started when I was 12, in case anybody wants to do any math stuff. But in any event, my business is helping individuals and corporations with their corporate and business real estate decisions. We do everything from managing to brokering. We lease and we buy and we sell, and I enjoy every single day getting up and going to work. I love what I do, and I'm retired in the sense that I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
That's great.
Very good. Griffin Berg, and with Health Points, a startup company that's focused on the problem of teenage and early, young adult diabetes. So we're taking the Jawbone and Fitbit applications and linking that with reward systems to try to move the needle on an epidemic in this country.
Hi, I'm Judy Foy.
Actually, you got away with dogs. I can tell right away. Dogs.
I just happen to know that dogs and babies are the first thing people look at on the net, so here I am. But my name is Judy Foy. I'm with Foy Communications. I've been in Ann Arbor for about 15 years now. And I do communications, mostly strategic, internal and external, how to work so that everyone working for you is a communicator. And right now I'm working with Dearborn, but I work with everyone. And I'm very happy to be here.
Judy, I need to see you turn to Dr. Rob Collins in the floor.
Okay.
Help me with that.
My name is Jeff Tulin-Silver. I'm an allergist. I live in Ann Arbor, but I have a practice in Livonia, West Bloomfield. I've been a member of the men's group for more than 20 years, which is how I know Paul and Rob and Phil. I know Paul's a really smart guy, and when he sent an email as to he couldn't come to the men's group last Sunday, I thought I'd come and see what he has to say about water. Oh, and my customers are 15% of the U.S. population.
My name is Ravi Nigam. I'm an attorney here specializing in business and estate planning. Basically, I guess anybody could be my customer, but I'm concentrating more on young professionals and people starting up businesses.
My name is Bill Brinkerhoff. My background is in biotech with a number of small companies here, and worked with Rob as worked together on some projects at Aspiria. Currently a mentor in residence at the University of Michigan. My customers are faculty looking to spin out and start up companies, and also have a project that's coming to the forefront that's in the local food area as well. And the customers for that one would be anyone who really is looking to help build the local food infrastructure and ecosystem around here from the consumer side.
Good morning, my name is Michael Cole. I need a dog. Yeah, my name is Michael Cole. I'm president of the Technology Industry Group at Bank of Ann Arbor. We help companies like LimnoTech and great entrepreneurs like Rob Freedman there grow companies and succeed.
Want me to hold it? Hi, I'm Kathy Sample. My background's in marketing and business planning, and I am currently working with Bill on this local food-based initiative.
My name is Mark Reynolds, and I eat food on a regular basis. I work with Marriott, and I'm looking for marathon business travelers, folks that need to know how to travel well.
Tighten up a little bit. We got people
Do the tighten up.
One of my favorite thoughts.
I'm Steve Gill, and I'm a trustee at Washtenaw Community College. You elected me to that position. You may not know that. And I'm also founder of a new company called Learning to Be Great, which helps our companies, organizations that want to improve their workplace culture.
Hi, I'm Kelly Jetty. I work with Patrick Racine at Eldon Water in the office of Rob, and I missed the joke. I walked in a minute late, so you'll have to tell me that. But we're just in the water industry and really interested in what this talk is about.
The dog is because it demands attention.
Ah, okay.
Nobody's drawn to a dog.
My name is Tommy Jones. I'm an academic counselor at the University of Michigan, so my passion is working with student athletes and helping them to grow and develop and maximize their abilities on and off the court.
Hi, I'm Paul Freedman, and you'll hear more about me when the program is
Good morning, I'm Troy Briggs. I'm with United Bank and Trust. I'm in the commercial lending area. My expertise is with small business lending, and in case you're wondering, yes, we do have money to lend.
Hi, I'm Barb Newlay with the University of Michigan. I work in the Water Resources Adaptation. We're telling our customers. And my customers are faculty, staff, and students. And I help them to manage their life outside of work so they can focus on their work. I also do leadership development. I just finished 4 days of teaching, and 3 of them were talking about strength-based leadership.
Which one to get first? It's tricky. I'm Brittany Boulder-Kane. I'm with the University Research Corridor, which is an alliance of University of Michigan, Michigan State University, and Wayne State University. We are a university innovation cluster on par with a lot of other clusters you might be more familiar with, like Research Triangle Park or Route 128, the clusters in California. And we are very competitive, and we're right here in Michigan serving the state and the entire Great Lakes region and frankly the nation. But not a lot is known about us, so we do a number of reports. And one is coming out on Tuesday, our 7th annual Economic Impact and Benchmarking Report. So you might hear a little bit about that. And the second report we're working on this year is a sector report that'll come out at the Mackinac Policy Conference, and it is focused on the blue economy and the water sector and the URC's contribution to the blue economy. So I've already hit up your partner, Peter Adrians, and so I'm here to learn.
You don't get too many.
That's okay, no, I got it.
Got it, all right.
You know, I can do this. See, so this is the talking dog. It doesn't matter what it says. It's the fact that it talks at all. Okay. We have one of those at Accio too.
Yeah.
So I'm Dawn White. I'm the founder and Chief Technology Officer of Accio Energy. We're a non-turbine wind energy technology solution. I'm interested in this topic because it appears that effluent from a number of water purification processes might be useful in our systems.
Step forward.
Hi, I'm Pam Sexton from United Bank and Trust. Okay. And I manage the Healthcare Services Group for United Bank and Trust. And am I supposed to say something?
You're supposed to say you have a lot of money to give.
We do have a lot of money.
As a matter of fact, United people are going to be handing it out right at the door. When you leave, be sure to pick up your bundle of money.
Free samples, Rob.
Free samples. That'll get out like rolls of quarters or something. Park downtown.
I'm Mara Coughlin, co-owner of the Ann magazine. We're a monthly news magazine. We're inserted to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, in Washtenaw County, and in the Ann Arbor News and the Washtenaw Legal News.
To have you aboard. Did we miss anybody? We got a couple people that came in this way. Okay. Yeah, I'll hold on to the dogs. Dogs gets a little skittish after it meets over 40 people.
Hello, my name is Tamika Young. I work at U of M in the hospital for Central Staffing Resources. I staff out nurses and clerks and sitters, patient sitters for the patients. And I'm just here because I'm interested in this topic. I was invited by Rob. I met him at a conference earlier last year, and it's nice to meet you all.
Glad you could make it.
I'm Phil Barr. I work at Proven Health Analytics, and we do health analytics. I've been about 17 years before that. We ran the healthcare data solution, also in the healthcare informatics area, and fascinating to see what's continuing to go on in healthcare. And I'm impressed that so many people got out here with this work.
That's right. Oh, we've got one more over here. Anybody else?
Good morning. My name is Jan Davies McDermott. I'm the owner and innkeeper at Davies House in Georgetown Bed and Breakfast and Extended Stay Inn. My customers are those people who come to town and need a place to stay for a week, a month, or several months. So if you have visiting scholars, those of you that are associated with the university, I have 2 from Turkey and 1 from Sweden right now. We have studio apartments that have kitchens. We also have 3 rooms that are bed and breakfast rooms, so those of you that have folks coming to town for leisure travel, we'd love to see them as well. If you don't have room at your house, send them to mine.
Jan, did you have some kind of honor that I saw something on your Facebook page that...
You're a sweetheart. The Zonta Club of Ann Arbor on Saturday honored me with the Distinguished Woman of the Year award.
Hi, I'm Deborah Orlowski. I work at the University of Michigan in Human Resource Development. I'm a Senior Learning Specialist, and in that role I lead some projects on staff development work, our supervisors series on leadership, and I also find speakers for our special events and conferences, and I'm here because... Pardon me? Yeah. And I've known Rob for a long time. We keep trying to figure out some way to get him to work for us. So we're working on it. It's going to happen.
One more there.
Just pick up, yeah. We'll get it.
Oh, she
I'm Dave Scaff, and I'm the head of commercial banking for United Bank and Trust. I don't know if Pam or Troy already mentioned it, but we had a big announcement last week. We are going to be partnering with the Old National Bank probably about the second quarter or so. Eventually our name is going to change. The faces that you see out in the street are not going to change. We're going to have some new colors, familiarly blue and yellow, that will fit in very well here in town. Yes, indeed. And fun factoid for the morning. There's a list that's out there that names the most ethical companies in the world, and Old National Bank is on that list, has been for the last 2 years, and is the only U.S. bank on that list.
Wow. And you're part of the group that has the money that will be handed out at the...
I was getting in my car, that's why I was a little bit late, so I got backed up right outside.
Right here.
Good morning, my name is Todd Kelly. I'm with Pasick, Kelly & Kelly. We're a certified public accounting firm in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We've been around since the late 80s, and this is my first meeting here.
With Paul?
I worked with Paul for many years.
Okay. Well, we're going to have you sit down in just a second, and Paul's going to get started on the talk. Just the format, Paul's going to talk for about, I guess, 45 minutes or so, and then it'll be 15 minutes of Q&A. If some people need to leave early, that typically happens, that's okay. If you're leaving early because you have to get somewhere, if you're leaving early because you find that Paul has the wrong side of the global warming point of view, then just keep your opinions to yourself. But it should be fun. And then at 9, we'll be wrapped up before 9, but we'd like to linger. Today we can't linger in this room too long because there's another event coming, so we're going to move the lingering out to the next room, but there's plenty of reason for people to hang around. And I just want to say thank you all for coming. We have a cool thing that I put together starting in a few months, and you might want to get a head start on this, and it's called Michigan Leaders Read Michigan Authors. And I have fantastic, this is an old series that we did, Michigan Leaders Read. Any of you remember that? We're part of that back in the days? Yeah. And we did it at the IT Zone. And now I've revived it, and I've got the first author is Rich Sheridan, who's written this book called Joy, Inc. Help me out with these if I forget them, Rachel. But then we have Vic Strecker, who's going to be, Vic is the founder of Health Media, and he's written a fabulous graphic novel called On Purpose, which came out of a tragic situation in his life and him dealing with it. So it's really about how we need to have purpose in life. Then we have Ari, I don't know what his new book title is, do you remember?
It's right there.
It's right there, okay.
The book is right outside.
Anyway, it's his third book in the series of managing. This is about managing oneself. And then Wayne Baker from the University of Michigan has written a new book. And I'm also hoping to have Jim Tobin, who's written a new book on Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So the next, starting in March or April, I think all the series will be about books. And my idea is that, just like Community Read for the library, we'd get leaders to read and come to these events to discuss what they've read and talk to the author about it. So it should be a really exciting series, and we'll be publicizing that. If anybody has any ideas about publicizing it, please let me know. Because and also I'm looking for sponsors for that. So if other organizations would like to be a sponsor for that, that would be really fabulous. We've already talked to Washington Community College about being a sponsor. I think they're on board. I also like to thank all of my clients and former clients who are in the room. If you've worked with me professionally, would you please raise your hand? Okay, so you can see quite a few of the people in the room have been my clients in coaching, been members of an advisory board. I've consulted with them. So I always get a real thrill from being here. The connected part, I'm really enjoying. And actually, I'm thinking of changing the name of what I do, because I've been doing more and more of putting on programs around connecting people. And so the new name that Rachel and I have come up with is Connectio. So let me know what you think of that idea. And the idea is it's kind of created an umbrella organization which would provide different kinds of leadership training. And it would also enable some of you who have programs that you might want to run it through there. I guess we're going to compete with the University of Michigan in a way. But,
There's always room.
Always room. So my vision and my dream for the year is really to put together kind of a training center or institute where people could come and either learn with one another or learn by attending seminars. So anyway, that's my dream. I'm going to ask you all to just wait 1 minute. I'll introduce Paul, and then you can sit at your tables, and we'll pass the food and drinks around so people don't have to rush up to the table. But I've known Paul. Why don't you all take your seats, and I'll introduce Paul. So back to Paul. Paul has been my friend for almost 30 years. We worked together, and a couple other people, Phil and Jeff, in a men's rap group. This is before rap took on its current meaning. Remember when rap was like people talking to each other, they're rapping. I guess that's still what it means in the rap world. But we've had through Temple Beth Emeth a men's group. It's still going on. Many years ago, I wrote a book about men, and I think Stu Simon and I got that started many, many years ago. And it's really still going on. So I got to know Paul and his family. And then I was called in by Paul to help with the tragedy in his business, which he may talk about. But I did some grief counseling as one of his partners and one other person who worked in the business were killed in a helicopter crash. So that's when I got to know Paul really well. And we've been friends and Paul's participating in many of my groups and other kinds of activities. But he's a real pioneer in the field of water, and actually a real pioneer in entrepreneurship in Ann Arbor. What year did you launch the business?
75.
75. And did you have a beard at the time? Or was that?
I couldn't even grow a beard at the time.
I mean, how old were you? 20 something, right?
I was in my mid-20s, yeah.
Mid-20s. So, I mean, I don't know how many other companies can say that they've been consistently working and growing for that many years. And Paul, I think a couple people work in the university startup field here, and Paul was one of those originals where he worked with a professor, and that grew into a business, and Paul eventually took over the business. And that's really the model that I think we're trying to cultivate in this community to create a vibrant economy and an intellectual community here of businesses that are providing services that draw upon science. So Paul is, his mother-in-law actually says that he knows more about water than anybody in her whole family. So that's really
and she's 90, and she's been around the block. She knows a lot of people.
So it's my pleasure to hand the mic over to Paul Freedman. Let's give him a hand.
How am I doing without a mic? Is that?
I think you should use it for
Is this pick the mic, or do you need it? I should use the mic. All right, I follow instructions. Okay, so I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for coming, especially on such a snowy day. I'm going to share with you, Rob asked me to share a little bit about my company before we go into the issue of let's hope this is going to work. Before we go into the issue of the theme of the day. So that'd be kind of a... Excuse me?
Hold the mic up.
Am I okay? All right. So there's kind of a mercantile piece and then a sermon-y, preachy piece here. So we'll have a little change in tone. As Rob said, my company grew out of research at the University of Michigan in 1975 when we were developing computer models of the Great Lakes, and still the majority of our business is based out of here of Ann Arbor, but we have other offices on the two coasts and in between. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and a little bit about what we do, and then we'll get into more about the global crisis, shall we say. Again, no, my finger doesn't seem to be working here. Let's try this. There we go. So I started it in 75, again, it was probably good that I didn't know much at the time because I would have been intimidated and never did it. But I started it mostly because I didn't want to grow up and leave Ann Arbor, and many of you maybe ended up here for the same reason. I just professionally, I just had, we were doing interesting research at the university. I wanted a platform to kind of do it in. And so I kind of, this was my vision. I wanted to do cool things, with computer models. I wanted to work with high-end people like at the university. Wanted to be a player. The environmental field was just developing then in the 70s. This was after the Cuyahoga burnt and all the legislation started. And I wanted to, this was our generation. We wanted to save the environment. My business plan was, I always like to say it was relatively simple at that time. I wanted to pay the rent and have money left over for beer, burgers, and dog food. It was like, what more was there to life when you were in your 20s? I married. My wife, if you know Judy, at the time was a substance abuse nurse, so beer was out. She was a vegetarian. There goes the burgers. And then the dog died. So I had to regroup, and create a new business plan. But no, thankfully I began to bring some great people into the company and had some professional association with some view, and I was able to grow the company. And although in all that time, these are kind of the themes. I still want to do cool things. I still want to save the environment, etc. So what do? We help clients solve their most challenging water problems. We use high-end science and engineering, and we're kind of trusted because we're objective, we have a passion, we're experts in integrity. Our clients, some before the session started, asked me, who do we work for? And we have really kind of a broad group of clients. There is cities, like Washington, D.C., Chicago, Cleveland, St. Louis, Toronto, San Francisco, London, bigger cities. Mostly they're utilities. On the corporate side, industries, we're working for bigger corporations, a Dow, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Honeywell, BASF, Boeing. And then federal, state agencies and nonprofits, kind of U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, Park Service, and nonprofits like World Wildlife Fund, Nature Conservancy, NRDC. Our projects have been all across the map. I've been delighted. We've worked in 49 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. And in recent years, we've been doing more global projects, and we've touched, just pretty much. Not all of those are intensive projects. A lot of them are quick assessments, but we've worked around the globe, and so it's been a real treat. I'm often asked what kinds of things that we do, and it's a bit hard to describe because they're not the kinds of things that the general consumer would be using. But I'll share with you a little bit. I like to categorize them in 5 R's and an S. We do regulations and legal issues on behalf of clients, resource management, remediation and restoration, research, and sustainability. And the latter one we'll talk a little bit about in the sermony part, the second half. But let me give you a couple examples so you have a taste, and then we'll talk about the topic of the day. We work a lot with stormwater. Hey, that's a subject I guess everyone here can relate to. We had some big rains, you see streets flooding, etc. We work with urban areas, big cities all across the map. We help them design plans to solve their stormwater problems so they don't have water quality and flooding problems. Might be a big, huge tunnel. Some of these tunnels, 3 times the height of this room, 35 feet, miles long, billion-dollar projects. And we help do the analysis to determine they function right and you don't get these overflows and geysers. Or it might be a greening of a city, putting in green roofs and rain gardens and the likes. So that's one example. Another is what we call environmental forensics. using high-end science and technology, computer models, chemical fingerprinting to determine causes of pollution and help allocate responsibility when multiple parties, and most of these pollution sites have sometimes dozens of parties who've contributed to it. Great Lakes, water issues, where our roots were. Do an enormous amount of research on the Great Lakes. Great Lakes water level management, an issue that many of you read about in the news. As an example, we did some work for the U.S. and Canadian governments to see what happens with hydropower regulation on the St. Lawrence Seaway, how that affects Lake Ontario, and how that in turn affects water quality, fish, amphibians, birds, and we developed a model for them to help guide their decision making about how to manage hydropower.
Birds' decision making.
Excuse me?
The birds' decision making.
Right. Yeah. They need where to park their butts, where to nest. Also do cleanups of toxic sites. Many are familiar with PCB in Kalamazoo. We worked there for long. Hudson River, Fox, Columbia. We work on mostly what I call the B sites. B for billion-dollar sites, the sites that are going to cost a big bankroll. Opportunity United Bank and Trust, you had plenty of money. Spend it there. But there's quite an art and a science to figuring out how you clean these up, because you can't afford to just rake them clean and dispose of it. There's lots of different technologies and strategies. We also, on the side for remediation, we do restorations. Sometimes small projects like this project in a small creek in the National Arboretum, where we created new natural habitat and modified the flow. Or we also work with major architects and land planners and to redesign city landscapes so that their water is more integrated in their fabric and more natural, rather than just put down a sewer pipe and flushed out to a river or the ocean. And so we work with places like Toronto and St. Louis and Tulsa. And we've also we do a lot of research. There was a little discussion of Asian carp this morning, invasive species. There's lots of other more troubling invasives that exist now in the Great Lakes. Zebra mussels, maybe you're familiar with, quagga mussels, spiny water fleas. We do study hypoxia, returning to the Great Lakes. That's a picture of the hypoxic area in the Gulf of Mexico. We do work with remote sensing and satellite data, so a lot of different topics. But enough, again, of the mercantile piece. That's so you have a sense of who we are. We also have a couple associated companies, LTIIT, which one of the region's best, if I may say, IT support, computer support services, and some of you out there use their services, and also a new company we formed, Water Risk Analytics, which is providing financial analysis to corporations and investors on how water risk affects their financial performance. Okay, so now the sermon. Step back, put a different mask on. So I'm going to talk about the growing global crisis, but how we can be moving from crisis to solutions. Let me begin with what is one of my favorite quotes about water by Lauren Isley. He was a mid-century anthropologist and author. Some of you may have read him. And what he said, if there's magic on this planet, it's contained in water. And I don't know if you agree. It's the basic building block, the elixir of life. We all depend on 2/3 of our body is water. We need to drink it. We need it to grow our foods. Civilizations historically have grown around water with it a central feature, whether it's for hydropower, producing the Industrial Revolution, the steam engines, we're all dependent on water, mills, navigation. And even the search for extraterrestrials, what's the first thing they're looking for? They look, hey, is there water up there? Because it's this magic elixir. But beyond its, shall we say, utilitarian value, it has a mystical and spiritual side to it. You know, for ages it's been inspiring artists, poets, philosophers, and yet, even though it's beautiful and kind of serene, it's also powerful. I mean, how many? I'm sure probably everyone in here has been awestruck by the Niagara Falls. You know, I mean, what's more breathtaking and powerful than Niagara Falls, or maybe the Colorado River? You know, the fury of this river. You know, hope all of you have had the chance to see it. You know, it drains portions of 6 states, almost 1,500 square miles of drainage basin, and just the power is remarkable. But at the same time, water is, shall we say, fungible. You know, it takes on the shape of anything. It's very flexible and loose, and you know, but it's soft enough to wash a baby's behind. Yet at the same time, it was powerful enough to create, you know, one of the absolute natural wonders of the world, something like the Grand Canyon, you know, and yet, these rivers are, I don't know if ancient's the right term, but, you know, certainly older than me. But yet, so what's happened with that roaring river, that Colorado River? What's happening with that river that created this Grand Canyon? Let's see what happens when it empties into the ocean. That's what the Colorado looks like often when it's emptying into, well, emptying maybe is a misnomer. You know, the water's gone, used up, depleted, exploited maybe, utilized, some would say, put to good use. Whatever case, should we say, can I say the magic is gone? It's not there anymore? And it's, unfortunately, it's sad to say, it's not just the Colorado River. The Rio Grande. How many of you have the Spanish? What's Rio Grande mean? Big river. Not much left there. Okay? The Indus River in Pakistan. Dams, diversion, deforestation. The Ganges River. You know, the birthplace of life and spirits and has spiritual, religious significance. The Murray River in Australia. The Yellow River, one of the world's greatest, biggest, mightiest river in China. Started to run dry in the 70s. In 1977, it was dry for 230 days. You know, in China, in around 1950, when I was born, they had 50,000 rivers. 50,000. Today, 23,000. Half.
Paul, does this one count as a river?
On some days it does flow. You know, it's not dry all the time, and you know, and I show a very shocking depiction. You know, you go to other sections of the river, there is flow. That's not true of all the rivers, but in many of these, the Rio Grande does flow in sections. The Colorado River, you know, does flow, but through overuse and exploitation, it eventually disappears, and it doesn't provide the beneficial uses for the environment, the ecology, people, the economy, when it's fully depleted. But it's not just rivers. You know, lakes and reservoirs too. Lake Powell, it's down like 100 feet in the last few decades. 100 feet. I love this sign in the lower one, Lake Mead. No fishing. I think I'll cast out here and see if I can get a big one. And even in places like Georgia, here's Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier in, what was it? I think it was 2007. The water level had dropped almost so much that they were weeks away from not being able to provide water to the city of Atlanta. And this is my one of my, I don't know if favorites is the right term. I hate to say this. This is the Aral Sea in Kazakhstan. The Aral Sea, at the beginning of last century, was one of the 4 biggest lakes in the world. 4 biggest lakes. But then they diverted water for agriculture. This was part of the old Soviet Union effort to harness all the aspects. And here's an aerial view of a kind of a before and after what the Aral Sea looks like today. See, it's really an inland lake. Let's not get picky about the terminology. So what does this mean? Well, first, your first thought is kind of, hey, where are the fish going? This is an ecological disaster, yeah. And that's true, and it's not just in those streams. This plot here shows the trend in freshwater species globally, and you can see it's dropped by about 1/3, due to scarcity, loss of habitat, pollution. Okay? But it's a public health problem too. It's not just, the fish. There's over 1 billion people without safe drinking water, over 2.5 without sanitation. There's 1 to 2 million little children under 5 who die every year from water issues, not having safe drinking water and sanitation. 1 to 2 million. By the time you leave today, in this little bit of time for his session, there'll be 200 little children, like your children's or grandchildren, who will have died because of water scarcity issues. It's one of the leading causes of illness globally. Half the world's hospital stays are as a consequence. But it's not just about emaciated kids in Africa, children, or snail darters. It's also an economic. After all, we're Business Connect here, so I think the economics is really important. Let's talk about drought. A couple of years ago, 2012, big drought. Depending on whose numbers you look at, droughts have 3 of the top 5 economic impacts in the U.S. on natural disasters. Droughts. On the order of sometimes $100 billion. The only thing that was bigger was Katrina. Maybe Sandy was up there too. And then, it depends how you calculate the numbers. So these are big economic impacts. Happens it's not just the U.S., Europe. They've had some big heat waves. Some of you may remember reading about it, like in 2003. EDF, Electricité de France, had to shut down over 1/3 of their electric power generation capacity because they didn't have enough water to cool their towers and produce steam. Cost that company alone $500 million. And that doesn't talking about the cascaded effects throughout the economy of the businesses that couldn't get the power. Another one, you remember in 2012 when half of India went dark? It was an infrastructure problem, but the driver behind that was really water. The monsoons hadn't been big and they didn't generate enough hydropower generation, so they didn't have enough capacity there. The drought had caused the groundwater levels to go deep, and so farmers and they didn't have it in the stream, so they had to pump much deeper water, and they rely heavily on pumpage and irrigation for their farms. Overstressed the system, and then bingo, they had an infrastructure problem and black 650 million people. And it's problems at a smaller scale too. Individual companies, not just regional problems. Beverage companies like Coke, Pepsi, Nestle, they've had to close plants in India. They've been denied permits. You remember the big controversy here in Michigan, but there's plenty of other places they've been have to scale back their operations or can't get permits to open. The textile industry, cotton is basic fabric of much of our clothes. Prices jump around based on scarcity in Pakistan and other places, and sometimes it'll affect the price of blue jeans by $10 or something because they have to pay more for cotton. And beer, SAB Miller in South Africa, just 2 years ago, they had to shut some plants down because they didn't have enough water. And when you run out of beer, it gets people's attention.
Now you're talking.
Actually, SAB Miller has been, and Coca-Cola and some others have been really a lead in a lot of this global scarcity work, and we've been working with them more later. But they recognize it's real obvious to them. Hey, there's water in their products, but this is, hey, you've all seen politicians talk. You can pull out little anecdotes here and there and make a case, but this is really a global problem. Here's a map of global water scarcity scaled, but you can get a sense from the color coding. It's on every continent. Of course, it's in the western U.S., northern Africa, Asia, some even in South America. So it's all over the globe, every continent, and it's pollution too. Maybe we'll talk about this at another day, but combined scarcity and pollution, you got a lot of trouble. Some places there is water, but it's overly polluted, like some of these dye operations in India or Pakistan. And so is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? Well, there's some mega trends that are important in our society today, in our globe, that are all going to impact water. Population growth. You have more people, they consume more food, drink more water, right? They're talking 9 billion people by 2050. We now have about 7. When I started to do this talk, it was at 6. But that's a 30% increase. Well, it's 30% more water, right? Economic development. Rich people use more water than poor people. Urbanization. This is the first time in the history of mankind more people live in cities now than in rural areas. And cities use more water. And climate change. Climate change isn't about global warming. It's going to be 2 degrees colder or 2 degrees warmer or whatever. It's all about how that's going to affect water. Storms, droughts, sea level rises, etc. It's all about the big issue is water. So let me share with you a kind of a troubling forecast that was made by the UN. This was the UN Deputy Secretary General. 2/3 of the world's population will face a lack of water in less than 20 years, unless trends change. Less than 20 years, 2/3. We're blessed, by the way, here in the Great Lakes. We'll talk about that later, but why this is important. But, it's not all doom and gloom. I don't want you to go home depressed. There is some optimism. And the optimism is awareness and knowledge of the problem is increasing. So partnerships are forming to create new solutions, and there's new research. I'm going to talk a little bit about the first two, given that we have limited time. But let's talk about awareness. Just about every major magazine and periodical has had a cover story on water. You can hardly go a day in reading a newspaper without seeing some article on water in it. There's specials on TV, So the public and the media's awareness of water is growing, which is good. But again, the question is so what? The Indus River is running dry. I mean, we're here in the Great Lakes. I got plenty of water. I take a long shower every morning, much to my wife's dissatisfaction. And so, what's the big deal? Let somebody else worry about it. But there's some new concepts that grew out of this awareness that have helped us understand this interconnectivity about why this is important to us. And the two concepts are virtual water and a water footprint. Tony Allen, economist out of, he's out of London, I forget the university. He was trying to study the Mideast, and he was perplexed. And he said, how does Israel, they're in the middle of a desert, do so well? You know, they don't have any water. And we know water is central to business and economy and et cetera. And what he discovered is, hey, they import water, not in tanker trucks, but virtual water. They import products that used water someplace else to manufacture them, and then they bring the water in. Look, more efficient. And so he began to look at trade in virtual water. This concept grew. One of his students, Arjen Hoekstra, who's at the University of Twente in the Netherlands, he created the water footprint. He says you can look at any product and you can determine how much water was used to make that product from what some call the cradle to grave, or the field to end use, from growing the crop or mining the minerals to its use and disposal in a landfill. And so it began to link water problems and water issues globally to things that we do here or we consume every day.
Paul, can you give an example of virtual water in Israel? So I understand that.
Any kind of product. They don't grow cotton in Israel, but everyone wears clothes there. Or maybe they do grow some cotton, but most of the cotton's grown other places. So they import a lot of virtual water by importing cotton and it relates to a lot of things. It can relate to food too, although they made great gains in agriculture there. They were the pioneers in drip irrigation. So begin to look at this virtual trade, and the world is interconnected, and there's little subplots here about how there's trade between, in fact, here in Michigan, we import water, virtual water. You know, I mean, think about it. I mean, how much you have a steak or a cup of coffee or whatever. They didn't grow it here, right? You know, this shirt, they didn't grow the cotton in Michigan. So we're importing virtual water into Michigan, even though we have the biggest source of 20% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes, 20%. And we were talking about, somebody talked about the blue economy somewhere around back. There we are. You know, so it's a big issue that we've been working with people in the state, John Austin, John Allen, and others about the blue economy. But that aside, so we use a lot of water, and we're a prosperous nation. Our water use, we're over there on the right-hand side of the. Whoops! I hope I didn't mess that up here. Right. Well, that's all right. The right-hand side there shows U.S. water use compared to the rest of the world. We use about twice as much water as everyone else because of our standard of living. Each of us, on the average, uses enough water every year to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So as the economy goes up globally, as a lot more water could be used.
I'm sorry, can you say that last factoid again?
Each of us, every year, in terms of virtual water, I'm not talking about the water you flush your toilet with, virtual water, uses enough water to fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. I'm just talking about the U.S. Just talking about the U.S. Okay, well, let's see where this water comes from. Little quiz here. Okay, here's 4 products. Something that you're all familiar with, probably, a Michigan t-shirt, a burger, ethanol, gasoline, and a chocolate bar. All right, how many think the t-shirt took more water to make? Raise your hand. 2. The burger? A handful. The chocolate bar? None. Okay, no. And ethanol. Y'all thought ethanol. Yeah, the smart crew here. Ethanol does take a lot of water. You know, you have to grow the corn. You know, it takes a lot. This was actually a trick question. They all require 2,500 liters of water, each one of them. Think of all those t-shirts you have buried away in your drawer. Every one of them has 2,500 liters of virtual water in that t-shirt. All the burgers you've eaten, even since January 1. The chocolate bars you have stashed in your desk or hidden away at home so your kids can't get them. And everyday products, a sheet of paper, 10 liters, a microchip, a slice of bread. Everything you consume, everything you eat has water in it. So, what do you do with this information?
How are you?
You know? Well, awareness is good. You know, what do you do with this information? Hey, right now we're all drinking a cup of coffee, right? I have a cup, it's my second. 140 liters, and I've had 2, maybe more. You know, because you have to grow the coffee, you have to take the cherry from the coffee plant, and then they mill it. They often use wet milling to kind of mush it and get the bean out. You got to roast the bean, you got to brew the coffee. You know, you pour half down the drain because it got old, etc. It uses a lot of water. We talked about beer, right? 80 liters of beer for every beer.
That's worth
Yeah. All right. So what?
Drink beer, not coffee.
Yeah, exactly. See, we got a smart audience here. Why start off the day with 2 cups of coffee? Start the day with, Stroh's or a beer. Help save the world.
It's the only slide you needed, Paul.
Yeah. You guys catch on.
You're very smart. You date yourself while you can't get Stroh's.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I couldn't think of another beer. But remember, my wife's a substance abuse nurse. Actually, not anymore. So I'm back on the beer. And I'm on burgers too. She gave up that too, and threw my 3rd dog. So obviously we're not going to have beer for breakfast, maybe lunch. But you know, can you make some personal decisions about your diet? Well, certainly. Again, being a vegetarian is good for the world. Uses less water. You can see here that's the same amount of food, a half a kilogram of food, going from left to right, potatoes to steak. You know, it's about an order of magnitude. Meat takes up about an order of magnitude more of water than a vegetarian diet. You know, some things are more. Beef is much higher, chicken less. Some things like corn could be more, and it depends where you grow the corn and a lot of things. But just kind of giving you a feel for this. So, I'm not going to, I said I was going to preach a sermon. I'm not pushing being a vegetarian. Although I was so for quite a while. Actually, I was a closet meat eater. You know, I had to go out. Vegetarian at home. I'd go on the dark side and have a burger. A little sorry. But I've been outed. You know, we're not going to change the world into vegetarians. In fact, unfortunately, it's going the other direction as poorer populations get more affluent. Affluent. Water. And unfortunately, in terms of managing this global water crisis, governments aren't really doing enough. We don't even have let me not go there too far. So, governments aren't acting, but there's these partnerships that I talked about that are filling the gap. You all of a sudden had these strange bedfellows. You had environmentalists, like World Wildlife Fund, public health advocates, and big business all realized, hey, we got a shared value here. Water's important. Business said, I need this water to run my business. Environmentalists said, we need the water to protect the ecology and the environment. Public health says the poor and impoverished need water to be healthy. And they said, we can find some common ground here. Let's work together. And they have been. And it's a remarkable story. And they've been creating all of these tools, a tool chest full of little tools for companies and organizations and governments and researchers to use to understand what the problems are, like water uses, the footprint understand how to assess risks, how to respond to those risks, a risk of, shall I say, of water scarcity. What are the best practices? What are the financial risks which motivate companies? Aside from being good citizens, they get a lot more attention when you say, not only being a good citizen, but water is posing a financial risk to you. And certification programs. And these are big companies. And I mention these examples because they're things we're working on, but things like Coca-Cola or IKEA, Rio Tinto's, Patagonia, all these companies are doing great programs. Many of them have actually made pledges that they're going to implement programs that replenish more water to the environment that they use. It sounds a little odd, can you really do that? But you can work with communities and you can help them capture rainfall and you can help change their leakage in their water systems so they kind of can make better use of the water and keep it into the hydrologic cycle and used. So amazing progress is being made by this partnership between big business and the NGOs. Organizations that used to be great adversaries now are great partners. Let me give you a couple examples of some projects we've worked on. Let me see where we're doing time. Oh, we're doing great. So I've been talking fast. See, those extra cups of coffee help you in the morning. We would have been here till well over 9 if
beer.
Yeah, the beer too. Yeah, that gets the humor flowing. So you got to carefully titrate the two. Your alcohol and your. It was a project, for example, we're working in India. Jane. You don't know it here, although you know that the name Jane, one of the biggest names in China, family names. One of the biggest food producers in Asia, produce potatoes and dried onions, and they do irrigation. So we worked with them to look at how they could change their farming practices by using drip irrigation and new cropping strategies for how they rotate crops and what crops they use where, harvest rainfall. What happens in India, you get these big monsoons. It rains, they wash off, go out to the ocean, and it's gone, and then you get drought. Well, hey, why don't you just capture it, infiltrate it in the ground, and you can pump it out later. River basin improvement, better management. So, some work we did with the World Bank. Another thing, we're doing with Chiquita, Fresh Express, those little bags of lettuce that you get. Well, they grow this, they irrigate it, they have different kinds of irrigation, sometimes pivotal spray, you've kind of seen those spray irrigation rigs that go in circles, there's different ways to irrigate. And the goal is to reduce their water use, what we call in the field higher crop per drop, that's the gain. In fact, Israel, when I said pioneer drip irrigation, they found in the, I think it was in the 60s, that they could get 50% more crop with 50% less water by using irrigation. The numbers are different now.
Drip irrigation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Drip irrigation, if those of you don't are familiar with it, instead of spraying it and losing a lot of it to the atmosphere that blows away and evaporation, and what you do is you put a little line, a tube of water on the ground or under the ground with little tiny holes in it, and you just feed water and drip it. And they can now today, with computer sensors and other things, you can deliver the water right to the right level at the time it needs it, with just feeding it like a little eyedropper. In fact, I would encourage those of you who have home irrigation systems with the spray in your gardens, put in drip irrigation. Take those sprays out where you lose most of it to the atmosphere and put in drips, and it's much more effective. So, working with salad producers. Coca-Cola Company, they've been one of the leads in this area, and they have a campaign it's called Reduce, Recycle, Reuse, and Replenish, and they made a commitment to return to communities and nature the full amount of water that they put into their bottles, and they do many things besides Coca-Cola, it's juices. You'd be surprised all the different products.
How do they do that?
I'm glad you asked. They have over 500 projects going on in 90 countries around the world. And what they do is they reach out to communities, and like you'll reforest an area that previously had been denuded, or you might do rainfall capture. You know, you get a big rainfall, you have a little dam, and then you cause it to infiltrate into the ground. Restoring a wetland. Some of the work that they do is improving well functioning, so in impoverished small areas, so poor people can get water. They might help communities repair their infrastructure. It's unbelievable. In some areas, they have water supply, and they lose sometimes as much as half the water from leaks in their pipes. Even in the U.S. it happens. It's very common in the U.S. to lose 25% of the water from leaks. In fact, New York City is rebuilding some of their big aqueduct tunnels because they have so much leaks. Another project, a tool we've developed. We talked about toolkits. This is without going into much detail, is a plot over 50 years' time of water use and how it might be impacted. And the color, it's called Water Prism. The colors represent the different savings that you can get in different sectors by implementing conservation and management practices. And you can see without those colors, at around year 35, you run out of water. It exceeds the available supply. But if you implement these various practices, you can break it down and have plenty of water. So there's all these tools being developed, and global tools too. Two things that I'm very proud of that I'm involved in. A global certification program called Alliance for Water Stewardship that'll be out this spring. So a company can get kind of the good housekeeping seal of approval, so to speak, that they're good water stewards. Or First Climate, working water benefit certificates. So if you're a company who uses water and you don't really quite know how to help replenish it in the environment, you can pay somebody else to do that for you and get a, quote, benefit certificate of some good that they've done in your watershed, and you can tailor it to the kind of activities that they do. So we're trying to leverage the economic forces in our world to help do good things. So, let me make a closing remark, and I show these pictures of children here because it's designed to play with your emotions. Seriously, this is an issue, you know? We have water here, but what we want to do is protect the water, you know, for our children and our grandchildren and the children and grandchildren of everybody around the globe, so that there is, you know, enough water for them to. It's not just an issue of survival, but it's also an issue of prosperity. And the one quote that I want to leave you with is a 200-year-old quote by Ben Franklin. Said, "When the well runs dry, we know the worth of water." Well, our hope is, even though water's priced pretty cheap now, that we won't come to that point that the well will be dry and will be too late to appreciate what the true value of water is. So, that's the end of the sermon. They'll be doing the collections on the way out. And that's why we have so many bankers here. Rob, I know we got to get out early, but we have some time for some questions or discussion.
15 minutes or so.
And, yes.
I read a couple of years ago about Australia, the experience in Australia where they had a massive aquifer and they used their water very liberally and woke up one day and found out that the farms that they're running out of water. And they've been changing the farming techniques. Can you give me a little history? How is that working out?
Yeah, that's a really good. Actually, I showed you the Murray River early on, one of the dry rivers. Murray-Darling and Australia was one of the early leads in developing good water policy at a government level. There aren't that many countries that really have it. The U.S. is not very good. I mean, you know, what did they say in the West? What was it Mark Twain said? Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. we have water rights in the West and it gets overused, etc. But South Africa and Australia and Chile are places that are doing. But in the Murray-Darling, they had a 10-year drought, and they used to have plenty of water. And so, hey, you develop practices and you irrigate the hell out of it, and you don't think twice about it. And then all of a sudden they had this drought, and they developed a water, I forget what the term was. It was kind of like a water rights, and you could buy it, and you could trade it. So what happened was farmers, what they were doing was they could actually lease their water rights. They didn't have to sell it. Like in the U.S., you usually sell it, you lose it forever. So they could lease it for a year, they'd get money for it, and with that money, they could buy drip irrigation equipment, so they needed less water, and then they could still farm, and they saved water, and somebody else got to use the water. And it really helped a lot, conserved a lot of water. It's a great example, I'm glad you brought it up. And it was great economic business. There was all this trading of water, and people were making money on it. The farm, everyone was happy. And then the rains came. Screwed up the business model, but ended the drought. And so it worked real well for a while, but then they, the drought was broken and they don't need it quite as much as they did before. Absolutely. And the conceptual model, too, of trying to do that. And so it was rather innovative.
Yeah,
Whoa, a number of questions.
Rachel, let's use the mic.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Great presentation. In your closing remark, you mentioned the price of water is very cheap, and we work with water in industries, and that's something we struggle with. And there's corporations like we work with Coca-Cola, and they do it for corporate reasons, not just financial reasons, but in a policy standpoint, they see the water price go up. I know in Montreal, up to 10 years ago, it was unmetered water, so plants were using it for free.
It's a big international issue. One of the things, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's an important issue. In terms of companies and individuals, water traditionally has been cheap. And it's like we're exploiting the commons and we haven't paid anything for it. Because you get it for free, you pull it out of the river, you treat it a little bit, and you use it. And so companies, they thought, hey, how'd you get the attention of a CEO when you're spending pennies for water? They're not concerned with that. They want to know about their expensive raw materials. And the same thing in communities. Chicago, a lot of places didn't have it metered. So there has been a push to increase the pricing of water. But then there's the dual edge of this. Well, what about the impoverished and poor, not only here, but in very poor communities in Africa or India? Isn't this a basic human right? And so they've been talking about some tiered structures, and we have it here in Ann Arbor. I don't know if you know it. If you turn your sprinkler on in the summer, you will. Use a small amount of water, you get one price, and you start using a lot more, and the price goes up dramatically. So there's new ideas, and that's why we don't have as much infrastructure, pipes, pumps, treatment plants, particularly globally, because there's not enough money to be made from it that people are going to invest. So it's a big debate globally, both from a public health standpoint, as well as an environmental standpoint. The price of water is just too cheap. In the back there, and I'm not sure how to rotate around. Maybe I should let Rob be the chooser. Our blue economy person. Now she's going to stump me. It's next.
I'm just really interested in, as I've been going around talking with folks for this report and learning all I can, I had somebody at MSU, a VP, ask, I think, a really important question, because people talk about, we have 20% of the world's, surface fresh water. We should be the clean water capital of the world because of being in that geography, not Spain, Indonesia, Israel, Milwaukee. Why not here? And so the question is, so what? We have all this water, we have this competitive advantage in some ways, but what does that really mean? And I wonder if you could, you've decided to stay here for maybe because you like Ann Arbor, but what is our competitive advantage here?
All right, I'll talk briefly on that, because that too is a very lengthy subject that we've been exploring on. why I'm here was I started off in quality issues, pollution. There was the Dead Lake Erie, burning Cuyahoga. So, but you would think we would have a competitive advantage, but because we have so much water, a lot of this technology didn't develop here. We had clean sources of water. You didn't have to worry about it. Israel is in a desert. They had to figure out some, what's the invention is a result of, necessity. Thank you. Necessity is mother invention. Thank you. And so, to one extent, what we should be thinking about is how can we bring businesses to the region that need clean, fresh water in large volumes and can use it with good stewardship, and rather than put them someplace else where they have to drill down the ground and draw down the groundwater table or put in a desalinization plant. And so the idea is we have to sell it. And we've never sold the Great Lakes region because of that. We've sold it from a tourism perspective because of our natural resources, but we never sold it from a business perspective. So that is certainly one way that we can do it. And it's not just agriculture, but microchips. It takes an enormous amount of clean, high-quality water to make microchips. I don't know why they're not in the Great Lakes. And so there's lots of different kind of technologies and manufacturing could be brought to this region and selling it. And then, of course, we also have the universities, which are great brain trusts for creating technology, and we need to leverage those and to try and produce it. So that's the challenge. We have to switch our mindset that we're trying to bring people to the region because of that as a resource.
Paul, can I add on to that? What does it mean that because the Great Lakes are not replenishable, what's the implication for that? That we can't just use the water.
Well, they are and they aren't replenishable. It rains, doesn't it? And the Great Lakes get replenished, and the water levels changes, which is another story. But not all water is. If you put electric power utilities use a lot of water because they have to bring it in and they make it steam, or they cool their towers and they discharge it. It goes back into the system. So the question is responsible use. You don't want to pipe it to New Mexico. And there were proposals in the 50s and 60s to run huge pipelines from the Great Lakes out to the other part of the areas. What you want to do is use that water here and do business with it here, but in a responsible fashion.
So what kind of business development people could you see growing up here that maybe have not grown up to sufficient capacity?
I might put that to our colleague over here, but there are lots of manufacturing businesses. We do have agriculture, which is valuable. That takes up a lot of land, and it trades off to our other desire to have open space and forest. But I mentioned like a microchip manufacturer, servers. Why don't we have server? They have them. Where do they put them in? Omaha or North Dakota or someplace? I don't know. These big server farms. So I think there are a lot of technologies that we can use here that would exploit it. And also, it's another question of style of living. You're saying, hey, come to the Great Lakes, and hey, you can water your lawn. You can have a lawn. Hey, in Las Vegas, they're paying people to take up their lawns. You get everyone moved from the Midwest and the East to Las Vegas for the dry climate, and then they said, well, hey, I'd like some lawn here. So they put in lawns and bushes and watering. Now they're paying them to take them out. Yeah.
Brittany will decide.
Did you want to talk about?
I was just going to say, from what I'm hearing and everything I'm reading, the number one thing is agriculture. That's the biggest use of water, which you probably already know. And I know there's a lot of effort to get more, I would say, water-intensive crops being grown in the Michigan area, Great Lakes, and food production, all kinds of manufacturing. It's huge.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Beer and wine, too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated your talk. I learned quite a bit and tweeted it live. My question is,
You didn't tell my wife about those long showers and the...
no, I did not. I didn't. But my question piggybacks on what we were just talking about, responsible use of our water supply, and I wonder where you come down on fracking. We hear so much from the different sides, one saying, you know, we need it, and they don't say anything about the pollution, and the other side says, this is polluting our water that we can never use again, and you're using these huge quantities of water that can never be used again. So what's the truth there?
Say one thing that I learned long ago, in mixed company like this, you don't talk about sex, politics, or fracking. Fracking is a very hot issue, and it's a very complicated issue because we have this huge reservoirs of natural gas, which is a more clean energy than coal, and some view it as a transitional piece to get from our fossil-based energy base to a more green-based. But it takes a lot of water. You know, each well takes on the order of 1 to 2 million, sometimes more, gallons of water to develop it. What they do in fracking, if you don't know, is they drill down and then they drill horizontally. Then they put high-pressure water in there and special magic chemicals. It's already a magic elixir. What do they need to put other stuff in it for? But they put this special mix of chemicals and sand and other things, and then they ram it, hydraulically ram it, shock it, and it cracks the bedrock and the geology, and then they pump it out and then suck all the natural gas out. It's been used in Michigan actually for quite a long time, for decades, and quite successfully. The problem is that, you know, not all fracking wells are created equal. Not all fracking companies are created equal. You have some bad players and some maverick operators, and you have some geologies that maybe you should do it and you shouldn't do it. But it has potential risks in certain areas where they don't have enough water and they're using it all to produce this fracking. And then there's other questions about what happens with the water and in terms of infiltration. There's been a lot of sensationalized documentaries, some of it fabricated and poorly documented, and it's quite controversial. And I guess in my view, the book isn't done on that yet, and that there needs to be much closer regulation for sure, and much more cautious development of it. But I personally, I haven't worked on fracking myself, so I can't state a yes or no answer. So a little background here.
Annie, could you pass that to another person?
Yeah, why don't you just pass it around? There was one over here, a couple over here. Yeah.
I visited a bed and breakfast in Bermuda and was fascinated by the water collection systems there, since they don't have fresh water and they're surrounded by salt.
Yeah.
Are any of those strategies in water collection for our future in this area?
Meaning terms like collecting rainwater and
collect it off the roof.
Off the roofs, yeah. You can't. We do that rain barrels, although it's more. That's more of a collecting in rain barrels is more a perception issue. It's not a big difference. Historically, we've thousands of years ago, they used cisterns. That's how they got their water. And you go to ancient ruins, you find big cisterns that they used. But that's essentially the concept of rainfall harvesting that I talked about. And in a lot of areas in Africa and India, etc., that's the idea. And here in Michigan, we don't have to do it because we got plenty of water from other sources, although we do use it for other reasons, for runoff control. But in areas with great shortage of water, rainfall harvesting is one of the biggest opportunities to capture rainfall and not lose it. And many of the projects we talked about, Coca-Cola does with rainfall harvesting. In some areas, though, in the West, you can't do it because you don't own the rainfall. Somebody else owns that water right. So that's a little interesting side story. Roger?
Yeah, I think one of the issues is lifestyle. A lot of companies have young people who want to make use of the natural resources that we naturally have here, and water is a key part of that. I mean, you get your water trail for the Huron River Water Trail, and all the features they added to that, you know, reclaiming the water that we already have for lifestyle, having a really healthy quality of life. And then you can have any kind of company work here.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, we talk about in our business, we talk about prosperity. It only comes from treating the triple bottom line. We talk about it. Environmental, social, and what's my third one? Economic, thank you. And so the idea is that you have to have a healthy water environment, and it encourages people to move to an area. It encourages people to appreciate and value the water because they're using it. I talked very briefly about us redesigning urban cities to integrate water as part of the natural features of the system. Historically, you know, what did cities do with water? Well, just get it down a sewer, in a pipe, and out of here. You know, and what you want to do is you know, they open up some. Allen Creek is a sewer now, right? And but in sections they're talking about opening it up and recreating these as a natural feature. So that's one of the strategies for helping people better appreciate the importance of water to their quality of life.
County Farm just did a good job.
That's right. Perfect example. Yeah.
Paul, we're going to wrap up, but I'd like to try something a little bit different on a wrap up. And I always encourage people to put away their cell phones, but I'm going to ask people to take out their cell phones now. And I want you to send me, and I don't know if you want to be copied on this.
Make sure you include your code on the back.
Yes, credit card, and go to PayPal. Your key learning for today. Your key learning. What's your one key? And put it in a tweet type format. And you can tweet it if you have a Twitter account, or put it on Facebook. You can even take a picture of Paul and send it if you want. But I want to capture this and then put it out in the Dr. Rob column on a Monday. What are the key takeaways? Because I think a lot of times we come away from these things and like, what are, you know, our brains say, what's one thing that we could really capture? So would you like to get the copies of this, Paul?
Sure, I'd love to see it. Yeah.
What email do you want to go to? You want to just go to me?
Oh, no, go to you, and then you compile it and then
right.
send it on to me.
Hashtag CEOConnect.
Hashtag CEOConnect.
Otherwise, you won't be able to find them all. That's how they get grouped.
Okay, all right. Hashtag CEOConnect. I don't do Twitter. I do Facebook way too much. But if you just take that out for a second and do that, and then maybe we'll just share a couple of your key takeaways, give Paul some feedback. So
I'd love
let's
to.
give him a hand, and then we can do that. And next month we're going to be having Tommy's boss here, so you better not sneak out early. Mr. Dave Brandon is going to be speaking, and we anticipate it may be a little bit bigger. So if it is bigger, we may move the locale to maybe the other Zingerman site, which holds a few other people, or maybe even United Way out on by County Farm. So we'll see where we are with that. But anyway, go ahead and do that, and then let's share a few of them when you get done. Okay.
And remember, beer, not coffee.
So while you're doing that, if you've already done it, you can send it. Let's share a few of them so people can talk about what are some takeaways that you've tweeted or put on Deb.
I've been super curious, but there are things that people can do just by watching what you read live. Think it's virtual water.
Absolutely.
Any other sharings? What takeaway? What did you put on your email?
Catching it one.
Kathy, out loud. I'm sorry. Just stand up.
Oh, that we need to make sure the next generation really understands that there are things that we need to do. Because my kids also need to take function.
Okay. Other key learnings, things you didn't know, or things you'll do differently as a result of being here. Jeff?
I think the whole concept of virtual water, for me, was relatively new.
Yeah.
And the fact that Michigan is, in terms of virtual water imports rather than exports, I just assumed we had enough water for everything and didn't even conceptualize how we utilize water in our everyday life.
Virtual, that was a new one to me too. And I wanted to make one of the suggestions I have is that Paul get together with Judy. Is Judy still here? And put this into a book.
'Cause I don't think there's a book like this, and I think it'd be a great book. I don't know if there is a book that captures this, or...
Well, not as good as I said it.
Yeah.
But there are a number of books about...
I have a suggestion for getting that word out, because I think it's really important information, is maybe weekly video blogs on just like 2-minute snippets on something critical.
Yeah.
You know, something that's more immediate. Sorry about the book thing, but you know,
I don't know why Bob has a real thing about me being a book person, but yes, there is this thing, the internet.
Yeah.
And
just getting that information.
So, and Annie and Judy, there's other people in the room that can sit down with you and, get it. I found a lot of gratification just by doing my weekly Dr. Rob thing, and it takes me a little bit of time because it's stuff that I already know, but Paul on water, it's Paul on drugs or whatever. But I think that'd be great because and also commenting just on what happened last week in West Virginia. Is that something we should? Should I worry about that? I should worry about a lot of things, but is that one of those I should add? Roger.
Yeah, that thing last week, they didn't have a standard for the compound that was leaked into the water. They had to come up with a standard within a few hours. And they still don't know what the dangers of that were. They're just guessing. So it's only one of, 60,000 chemicals that are used that are not regulated?
It's not only the chemicals, but it's the pharmaceuticals that we're all taking. You can go out into to our water bodies and you can measure caffeine in the rivers. And that's why we got to switch back to beer from coffee. It goes in here and it comes out in the Huron River, and you can find everything from caffeine to hormones and Viagra and everything. All these pharmaceuticals that people go through your system, or you flush down the toilet and out in the environment. So there's a lot of
what should you do with that? What should you do with pharmaceuticals?
Oh, you should go to your local pharmacy, and many of them have programs for how to recycle them. And
the city of Ann Arbor actually has, the county has a way to use it. Just if you look up Washington County and put pharmacy.
Griffin, you had a comment?
I did. Not to take away from all the concerns and issues we have going forward with water quality, but old enough to remember in the 60s and 70s, we had some really, really serious situations, and all around the United States with water quality. And thanks to the EPA and awareness and efforts of people like Paul, we've moved back, I think, from the crisis mode to just a serious concern mode through awareness and remediation. So, just a congratulations to Paul for his lifelong work in this area.
Well, and I wish I would have had time to talk about our progress and how we're falling back. Because some of the issues that inspired me to get involved in the field, the Cuyahoga is no longer burning, but they had huge blue-green algal blooms in Lake Erie, and it was declared dead. Well, just a year or two ago, there were in western basin Lake Erie, there were huge blue-green algal blooms, and the hypoxic zone is beginning to grow. The problems are different today than they were then, because population has grown, agriculture has increased, and so we're seeing a return of some of the problems. But it's a great success story, you're right, and I'm so proud to have been part of the industry that helped achieve those huge, huge gains. Good point. Thank you.
We have a company in here. Kelly, you want to say your company does provide help for local companies around water. You just want to say what you guys are?
Sure, well, we're Eldon Water. We do industrial water treatment, so for boilers and cooling tower applications. And our mission is to help them save water, energy, and chemicals.
So it's Eldon Water. Yeah. Okay, just want to promote our local businesses. Oh, I think it's a good time to wrap up. We need to be out of here in a few minutes. A couple things. We have a lot of food left over, and this will be greatly appreciated at your work site. So we've got some boxes. We can take some back. It might even be appreciated in your family, but you've had enough of it yourself today, so don't take any for yourself. And thanks again to Paul. Let's give him a big hand. Feel free to carry on the conversation in the next room here.